Okay, looks good. I think we're all good. Welcome to the class, as I said. So far I'm the only one online. That's okay. I know Shane just got back home, so he may not be able to join us. That's okay. I have ensured now I do it enough, I can pretty much sure whether the camera or the microphone is working before we start, so we are good. So let's go to full screen mode, then we'll talk about the class material first before we move on to the lecture today. Okay. Good. The full screen mode seems to be working. Okay. Let's go to our schedule. So most of you are doing quite well on your assignments and also discussion session. And if you have not done it yet, please do it as soon as possible. As we said before, this is a 7 and heavy class, so things go fast. So we want to make sure you catch up with the material. So if you're not, please spend some more time to cover and review the materials that we have covered so far. What we have so far is not very difficult. It's the basic things, how you start using JavaScript within or combined with your HTML and CSS. And we have talked about arrays and loops last time, and we have go over some of the operation expressions on the JavaScript language. And today we are going to talk about conditionals, the flow of the program. And then we'll talk more about objects and styles on Thursday. But just to remind you, because I have jury duty on Thursday, so I will record the Thursday session. So we are not going to have the class at the same time. Since most of you review the class material after the class time anyway, so it should not have any impact to you. I will send out an email to you, just like usual, give you the link to the conference recorded section, so you can review it off hours. Okay, so no change there. Just to make sure you know it will not happen at the regular time. That's all. Nothing else change. Okay. Let's talk about assignments. 2.1 was to create using loops. To create, excuse me, and excuse me. To create an 8x8 chessboard, and most of you have done it already, except one, I believe. So please go and submit it, and all we want you to do is follow similar methods that the book provide on creating the bingo card and create the 8x8 board. And the only difference is you have to change the color to make it, two color board. And that's the only trick you have to do. Other than that, everything else is similar to the bingo card. So it should be a simple one. But another assignment due this week is to create a simple two-window program. And you can enter the movie title on one and then display on the second one. Okay, so it's more dynamic. So you type in something on one window or a text area, and then collect the information in strings and then display on the second one. I will spend some time to talk about today, just like usual, the second half of the class. I'm not going to show you the whole solution, but I'll show you at least how to start it and what I'm looking for. Sometimes the description here may not be clear enough, so I'll just explain to you what I'm looking for and show you a little bit how you start it, at least the way I look at it. And of course there are different ways to do it, so it's up to you. But the effect has to be the same. So that's what I'm going to show you the second half of today. Okay. And some of you already started actually completed the discussion last weekend, and there will be another one coming up. Okay, there will be two, in fact, due this Friday and Sunday. The one on Sunday really is not much. Okay, so just take a look on it. Okay, it's not on a particular topic. Okay, so please chime in and follow the instruction that provided. We just want people to do some research and participate in the discussion so we can learn from each other. That's all. Okay, should not take too much time on the discussion sessions. Should be an easy one to score. That's our schedule. Let's look at the module. As I mentioned previously, today we're going to talk about conditionals, and then we'll wrap up with the object and style, the DOM. Okay, and that will complete this particular section. There will be a couple assignments for this section: the temperature conversion and day and time website. I'll talk a little bit about those two assignments on Thursday lecture. Okay, and then we'll start with forms, event, and dynamic contents starting next week. Okay, that's our plan. Let's see. I think that's all I have to cover. The announcement wise, I think, yeah, all those are lecture. So far so good. The lectures are recorded properly, and as I mentioned earlier, I kind of know what went wrong previously, so I will try to avoid those mistakes. And so far I think we are okay to record the session both in Canvas and YouTube, so you should not have any problem seeing it. Oh, actually Shane John, okay, I just didn't see it when my screen was covered. Okay, now let's go ahead and start. We'll close out the full screen mode, and then we'll, oh, he has problem. Huh, interesting. No one reported to me. I don't have problem viewing the Canvas session. I'm not sure what happened, but Shane just mentioned he has problem viewing the Canvas version. And Shane, if you could, oh, it keeps stopping on you. I'm not sure why. Of course, I didn't review the whole thing. I just sampling, 10-15 minutes ahead, and making sure the voice and the camera and everything is recorded. So I don't know. I didn't play it back since it's take a couple hours. So I don't know whether it has any problem. But at least he said the YouTube version was good, so that's at least we have a backup. So if you have any problem with viewing the previous lecture, please use the YouTube version. So I'll make sure everything is working too for the YouTube version. Let me go to go down to the stop the full screen mode. Okay, and let me go to the recording. Your YouTube recording so far is still working. Looks good. It's changing when I move my mouse, so I think it's good. That's what I need to do occasionally, go back and check, make sure it's recording what we changed on the screen. And I did notice if I don't start it, or sometime when it started with black screen, if I don't change the setting, it will not get the live screen. And that's what will happen one time we get a black screen. You have to make sure the screen is recording the live session. If it's a black screen, then it doesn't start properly. So that's what happened last time. So I'll make sure we do that. Okay. So at least we know the YouTube recording is working for the last lecture, and I'll double check the YouTube recording occasionally during today. More often I should do it, and making sure that's recorded properly too. In any case, let's go ahead and go with the lecture today. It's not long, and conditionals are commonly used, and almost all programming language have some kind of conditionals for programming purpose. Even assembly language has it. So that's nothing new. Since you do all have programming background, so it should be an easy topic for all of you. But no matter what, you do need to know the syntax. Particularly, we did say JavaScript is a weak type language. So syntax is important, but if you mistype it, you may not get the result. However, it's hard to spot it. Okay, so it is important for you to know the syntax and carefully type in, because if you make a simple mistake, there's no compiler to warn you. You just do not get the result, and sometimes it's very difficult to track down what went wrong when it's not flowing the way you want it in the program. Okay, let's begin. Conditional, this is a C-type language. So conditional means if else. Okay, there's another one called switch. This is another C-type conditional structure, which may or may not be available in other language. But in all C-alike language, you have switch statement, and we'll look at that. And we'll look at how it's constructed and how to manage the flow of the control when you execute a program. And we'll talk a little bit about multi-dimensional arrays. Since we did talk about arrays and loops last time, combining with this conditional, and now you can really do a lot of things using arrays, using conditionals, and to manipulate your data. Similar to what you did last time with the bingo board, we did it in class, and also the chessboard. I think some of you already use some of conditional statements, and for sure you use the loop, the for loop, to do that chessboard. Okay, so combining all these together, it becomes very powerful programming capability to do all kinds of programs. Okay, so first thing we will look at all these structures and the syntax. Okay, and also look at what is better for certain tasks. Just like the for loop we mentioned last time, three type of for loop, right? Three type of loops: the for loop, the while loop, and do while loop. And you can use one to implement the other. Similarly, here we have the if else, we have the switch, and we have some other an additional conditional. We'll talk about it. You could use other method to implement it, and the result will be the same. Okay, but sometimes it's a preference. Sometimes is when you after you implement it, is it easier for someone to review, and also of course to maintain and modify it. So there are common practice and best practice in those areas. So we want to make sure we do it right. Okay, so that will definitely make the code more readable, easier to maintain, and sometimes it make it also scalable. Okay, that's why it's important to follow certain styles when you do the conditionals. Most of you or all of you should know flowchart. This is a basic flowchart correlated to the conditionals. The diamonds, of course, is the decision-making elements in the flowchart. When you execute a program from start to end, you come up with certain decision at certain place to decide which route you're going to do. If you're not familiar with flowchart, it should be easy to go on internet to look at the flowchart tutorial. There are only few elements you need to know for basic flowchart. We are not going to talk about it in this class, but I urge you to go ahead and review it if you forget or you never used flowchart before. And one of the things correlated to conditional is the diamond, which is a decision making. Say you ask a question about certain things, then you have two routes. One is the yes, one is the no route. Okay, for this particular one is divisible by 4 or not. So this is a leap year decision tree. First you decide whether it's divided by 4. If it's not, then it's not a leap year. If it's yes, then you see whether it's divided by 100. Then if it's yes, then you check whether it's every 400. If it is, then it's a leap year. If it's not, it's not. Okay, so that's our decision making for this particular program. Okay, and then we can use the if-else statements, okay, in the programming that will implement this type of decision making. So before we do, let's take a look on the structure, how to create a conditional statement. The if-else, just like language, if something is true, then you do it. If it's not, you don't. So that's conditional. Okay? So that will change your program, because that means if the condition is not true, then the commands within this block, the open brace and the closed brace, the left and right, anything within this block will not be executed if the condition is not true. It will only execute it if that condition is true. So it's a Boolean condition. That's why we learned expression previously. So you evaluate the expression or the condition here to determine it's true or not. If it is, then you execute this. If it's not, then you don't. To come out from this block. Okay. The condition can be a combine of relational or logical operators. So all these operators we learned last week can be applied within this condition using an expression. Okay. Next. Of course, sometimes we do have the yes and no answer to a question, and we may do different things. So this is a if-else. Previously, you only do that if it's true, otherwise you do nothing. But it's the if-else statement. If that's true, you execute this block. Else, that means it's not true, then you execute this block. Similar to the flowchart we have looked at, if this is true, then you execute this command, whatever that is. If it's not, then you execute other command. Okay, so that's the if-else here. The curly brace determines the block of commands that you want to execute for a particular condition. Same thing on the else. Okay, some people may put else brace up along with this, save a line. It's up to you. Either way works fine. But you always want to have the braces, and they're always in pairs. If it's a single command, you do not need the braces and it will work. Just like with the braces. if it's a single command. But if you have multiple commands, then you do need the open and close brace to make sure it's the block to be executed. Same on the else. Most people will say, why do we bother to put it in if it's a single statement? But you always want it. The reason is, it's easier to read, first of all, so you know which block is going to be executed. Second is easy to maintain. If somehow, after a while, you go back and look at the program, you add it was a single command, you add another command on the bottom, without adding the braces, then we'll make your if statement incorrectly executed, because it will only execute the first command, because there's no block indicator. But if you put the brace up front, then you can modify your code without worry about have to put it back. It really doesn't cost you much. Okay? It doesn't change the size of your program other than you type a couple more characters in there, and it does look better. The worst scenario is for someone else, not yourself, to go to look at your program and make change. The common or easiest mistake they make is, if you don't have braces on this, they will just add a line here. Okay, think it will execute both lines. That is not true. It will not. The else will only execute the first one. Then the next statement, without the braces, will be executed no matter what the condition is. So really will cause a problem on your flow of the program. So please, that's a habit and best practice. Always put the brace there, even though it's a single line. Okay, that's the reason. Okay. You can have multiple if else if. Okay. So all it does is check the condition. If it's true, do this block. If it's not true, then we'll check the second condition. If that's also true, if that's true, then you do this. That means the first condition is not true, the second condition is true, then we'll execute this. If neither of them is true, but the third condition is true, then we'll execute that. If nothing else is true, then you have the final block, the else. Nothing else, conditional 1, 2, or 3, none of them is true. Then you go to the default. Not a keyword, just you execute this block, whatever you want it to be. And in general, it's an error message. Say if someone enter, a good example is you are looking for a user to enter a value, okay, has to be a certain range. So you check the condition, making sure the value they enter is correct and fit into what your programs need. If they don't, then you will output a statement, say, sorry, your input value is incorrect. Okay? So that's the commonly used method. You can have as many conditions as you need it. Make sure you indent each block so to make it much easier to read. Even this one, the brace and the else is on the same line, and the previous one on a separate line, but it still looks very easy to read because you can see each block clearly once you indent your block statements. Okay, and you can see they are in pair clearly. Okay, if you use the editor will highlight those and give you a cross if you don't have the close brace. So at least the editor will warn you in case there's a problem. But it is still your responsibility to make sure they're in pairs. Because if you don't have it, say you forgot about the last brace, then there will be a problem, because when the program runs, it depends how it was interpreted. It may ignore, it may just do one statement, or it may execute multiple statements for you. Depends, it will see another brace down below. That can cause you a problem. Okay? So be careful with the braces. Make sure they are in pairs. Okay? And doing it, indentation really help when someone read your code. So please do that. Okay. Next. You can also do nesting like this. You can do a if condition 1, and within the block, you can do another if condition. Okay. If you do that, please make sure you indent each block. You can see this block corresponding to this corresponds to that, and you keep doing the indentation. Then it will be much easier. Because if you don't, imagine you have those whole block move up here. Now it's hard to see this else, whether it come with this or this L go with that. Understand? Imagine these 3 blocks are here. Then it's really hard to tell whether this if else correspond to the second if or the first if. But if you indent them, you can easily see these else go with the first if. You don't have to trace all these braces to find out where it goes. So it is very important to do indentation. So sometimes you say, I don't care, I know what it is. But when someone read it, it's a different story. Honestly, after a year, you go back and modify your code. It's also make it easier if you do the indentation. So please do that when you do JavaScript programming. Okay? I know a lot of you already do that even in HTML, which is nice, because it really make it easier to see each block. So same thing on this programming language. Doing indentation helps if you have a complex program. Okay? That's it for if else. I think most of you have some kind of knowledge of that kind of conditionals, so it should not be new to you. It's a matter of a different syntax or style. I think most important thing we talk about is the braces and then the indentation. Okay, make sure you do when you do your programming. Okay, I may take a point out if you don't follow that, because that will make it difficult for me to review your program if you do not do the braces or do not do the indentation in the JavaScript program. Okay, particularly that JS file, you have to do the comment, some comments. Okay, you have to do indentation, you have to do braces. If you don't, I'll take out a point here or there just to warn you. This is important when someone else review your program. Okay, so please make sure you do. Then we have a second conditional in this language. It's called switch. Now we look at the if else. You say, boy, you can go to many levels. It depends, how many conditions you're going to meet. And sometimes it is, I agree, it is hard to read. Even you have the braces, the indentation, it's still difficult to read. So we come up, or people invent this language, come up with a switch statement, make life a little bit easy. However, there are limitations on the switch statement, unlike if else is a general type of conditionals. and you can use any expression to do that. On a switch, there are limitations, okay, and we'll look at this. But first look at is the syntax, the structure. Is the switch keyword and the expression or condition. So we evaluate this, and same thing, then you have a block or program for the switch. So the switch start here, the block start here, and each of, after the expression is evaluated, we'll look at each case. So you have cases, as many cases as you need, okay. Say if you're looking for a common usage is looking for a user menu. So you display a menu for them to select 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items. Then you can do a case. When they select 1, you do certain things. When they select case 2, then you execute certain things. So there's a commonly used for menu, okay, for user interface menu handling, okay. In this case, it is much cleaner to review. If you do the same thing for that, then you have to do if input equal to 1, then you do this, else input equal to 2, you do that. So you have the if else 4, 5 levels, okay. Or if you have the menu is a long one, is a 10 item, then you have the 10 if else to do that. So the indentation really go far to the right, so it's hard to read sometimes, okay. But however, using this is much cleaner. Okay, we'll look at some examples here. Okay. So it can handle multiple values. So that will be the value number 1, 2, 3, and 4. And each time you do the colon for that particular case. And there is a statement called break. Just like the if else, right? Each of them you have a block. The break and this block. So you have a case number 3. This command will be executed. After that, you want to break, because you don't want to execute other stuff. You stop that block. So instead of using braces, we use the break command to stop that block. But somehow if you don't have anything or no break, and say case 1 comes up, then it will just execute whatever below it. That means it will execute this command and break here also. So that means based on this structure, label 1 and 2 will execute the same command and will break it here. There is also a default case. Just say default. In case, say, if you have a 5 items menu and they type in 6, so it will not be equal to any of those, then it will come to default. Then you can execute a command telling the user you have entered, you have selected the wrong input, the wrong menu item. So that's the common practice also. Okay. So please make sure the common mistake people have is they forgot about the break statement. If you do, then you're going to mix up 2 cases together. So that's the common mistake. Okay. Before we go on to this one, let me add on a few comments. Now, then you have to decide whether you want to use switch or the if. If you have, now one thing to distinguish that if and switch is the cases here. The if can be a range of value. Say if you want to execute certain things when the value equal to 1 to 10, and then execute other statement to from 11 to 20. You cannot do that in this case, because you only have one expression, if the input value fall within like 1 to 10, then you can execute 1. But then you cannot do that from 20 to 30, 40 to 50, since you only have one expression. Okay, so you're going to have discrete value based on the expression, so you can have a case. If you have a range of data, then you cannot do that. Then you have to use if else, because if else is more a general conditional statement. Okay, you can use multiple expression. Okay, unlike in a switch, you only have one condition to begin with. Okay, so this is only good when you have individual values for each case. Individual values for each case. If it's not, then don't use the switch. Use the if. Okay. That's why the switch statement is good for menu user interface handling, because you have a defined set of menu they can choose. Then you can execute the commands accordingly. So it's a defined set of labels or value from what they select, and you can execute them. Okay. So think about it before you use it. But as we said before, you can use if else to replace any switch statement, because if else is a generic or general conditional statement, but you cannot always use switch to replace the if else, because there are limitations on the switch statements. Okay? If you're not sure, then always use the if else. It will always work. But if you do use the switch, please make sure you follow the syntax, because if you don't, the problem with that is when it's displayed, when it's executed, it may have the wrong result. If you don't put the break there, you don't close the brace properly, you don't have the colon set up for that each case, then it's not going to be executed properly. So please be careful when you use it. Particularly if you don't use it often, make sure you double check on the syntax before you actually implement the switch statement. Okay, so there is one more, a third kind, conditional statement. It's a two-way choice. It is almost a simplified form when you have something if else assignment. Okay, what it is it uses a short form. If an expression is evaluated, if it's true, then it will execute the first part. If it's not true, it will execute the or choose the second part. For example, if you have a variable hours equal to, you want to decide whether it's AM or PM, you see hours less than 12, then you select AM and assign it. But if it's greater than or equal to 12, then it's set to PM. So it's a simple conditional. It chooses only two items. No statement to execute. It basically chooses the true value and then the false value based on the condition, the expression that you have within the parentheses, and assign it. Okay? So it's just a clean and very simple, a simplified way to do the assignment. Now, of course, you can use, just like the switch statement, you can use the if else statement to do the same thing using 2 or 3 lines, right? If hours less than 12, this equal to AM, else equal to PM. Okay, 3 statements. You can also do that, but this is just a simplified form. You can do it all in one statement and quite easy to read. The same as if else. If this true, you have this. If that's not true, you have the second part. So looks good. However, when you use it, you have to remember all the syntax. The question mark here, the colon here, semicolon to end it. Okay, if you make it wrong in JavaScript, you will have unexpected results. Okay, so if you do use it, please check the syntax. More important, I look at it as you can read other people's program when they use this kind of statements. That's more important than whether you use it or not. If you're good at it, go use it. Okay, that's the purpose, right? But most important, you can read other people's program. Okay, that's a little bit more important, because if you don't understand how this works, that's going to be a problem to understand the program. So I think that's more important. For you to use it, make sure you follow the syntax. Okay? Next. So, that's what we have talked about today. 3 types of conditionals. One, if the general one, the if else, it can be used for any kind of conditional, and you can have multiple levels, nested conditional using the if else. And most important is make sure you use the braces in pairs to define the block to be executed for each condition, and also do indentation to make your program much easier to read. So you can implement using if else for the switch, or implement that for that 2 value condition. So if you know if else, then you really do not need the others. Okay? But to the minimum, you need to understand how the switch works, how the 2 value condition works, so you can read others. But they're there to simplify, to make things better sometimes. So do use them if you are comfortable using them. Otherwise, you can implement all condition by if else. On the switch statement, as I mentioned earlier, there are restrictions because you only have limited number of choices and only a discrete number, not a range of numbers. It looks better, it's cleaner. That's the purpose, right? But be careful when you use it. Make sure you follow the syntax. The break statement is the most commonly one that missed it. Then of course you have the 2 value, the simplified way to assign 2 value. You can also do that using an if else statement, but if you are comfortable using it, please go do that. It does make it easier to read too. And the braces, indentation is the number 1 thing when you use those conditional, particularly on the if else. It makes it much easier to maintain and read by others. Okay. So we use the break statement in the switch structure, but really the break statement have other purpose too. If you're in a loop, suddenly you do a if else and then you say break, it will break out of the loop right there. Okay, like you have a forever loop for some reason. We don't recommend, but if you do have one, a forever loop, it will just keep looping. And then inside, we'll do an exceptional check on something. When something happens, you break. Okay? Then it will break out of the loop. So break, that's what the meaning is, the break. Just like the switch, when it break out of the switch statements. So it ends the switch. So on a loop, the same thing. Doesn't matter for loop or any other loop. When you do a break, it will break out of the loop. It happens with while loop also. When you do a break, it will break out. Okay. Then another statement is called continue, similar to break. Within the loop, suddenly you say continue. Most likely you have a condition, if statement, and then if that happens, then you say continue. Continue means continue just from that point on. It will continue the loop to the next level and to the next loop. That means you will end whatever happening in that particular loop, and you'll go to the next one. Okay? Say if you're executing a loop I equal to 5, okay? When you're executing that inside the loop, in the block, suddenly you say if something happen, then you continue. That means it will not execute whatever the loop will do for I equal to 5. It will just jump to I equal to 6 and execute the loop to continue on. So we'll go to the next level, I equal to 6. That's why it's called continue. It will just stop whatever happening for that particular loop at that point and will continue to the next cycle. Okay, that's continue. So that's the break and continue. Now normally you don't want them because make your program harder to read, harder to understand when you have break and continue statements. So try not to use them. Of course, on a break situation, when you have switch statements, you have to have the break statement. Okay, it's not a choice, it's a necessity. But on other programming, you don't want to have breaks or continue statements unless it's very necessary. It's a bad programming practice if you do that. Okay, it's a very exceptional case. You want to break out or you want to continue on during a loop. Okay, so please don't design your program that way unless it's necessary. Now let's close up and talk about multi-dimensional array. We have learned about array last time, which is handy for using with loops. You can loop through or cycle through the statements. But in this language, we also support multi-dimensional array. In general, you don't want too many levels because it will make it very difficult to understand and sometimes to read. Okay, and two-dimensional array is common because it represents, okay, like a 2D scenario. Like in this case, you have the row and you have the column. Row is vertical, counted. Column is horizontal counted. So if you have an array called balances, the row is 3, that means you counted 0, 1, 2, 3. And column is 4, you go horizontal 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this particular square is the balances at row 3, column 4. Please make sure rows and columns all start with 0. That's how this language works. That means 0, 0 is at this point, 0, 0. Just like a coordination system, right? Always start with 0, 0. Then the next one is 1. So 0, 0 is here, 1 is here. So 1, 1 is here, 2, 1 is here, 3, 1 is here, 3, 4 is here. Okay, always rows and columns. Okay? So that's two-dimensional array. Now you can go as many dimensional as needed. I think most commonly used is 2 or 3-dimensional array. You think about 2-dimensional is like a 2D graph. 3-dimensional is like, XYZ in your geometry. Okay? So usually you can have 2-dimensional and the Z part is containing other data. Okay, X, Y, Z. So that's the commonly usage, three-dimensional one. But go over that, sometimes it's doable, but it does make it very difficult to understand and to use also. So three-dimensional is common. Three-dimensional, more than three-dimensional is rare. Okay, because if you do that, you may want to just implement a data structure and object instead of using more than three-dimensional arrays. Okay, but it's available, it's doable, as many levels dimensional as you need it. Okay, just keep adding square braces, brackets to define the dimensions. So there's a term matrix. It's basically a multi-dimensional array, okay, referenced by the index, just like we have talked about previously. In the book, I think this is the previous book, I don't think it's the current book. They say it's not supported in JavaScript. That's not true. It is supported. Matrix is supported in JavaScript because it supports multi-level dimensional arrays. Okay. So as we have looked at it before, arrays are good for loading tables. So you can actually set up more complex data structure using arrays also if you wanted to. But of course, now we're in the old world, you rather objects to define your data structure. And you can have an array of objects. Instead of going to multi-dimensional array, you will have an array of objects. So it will be much easier to manage instead of too many dimensional arrays. But it's doable. Okay. That's the lecture for today. I think, yep, that's the last slide. So today we talk about conditionals, 3 types, and then we also briefly, very briefly, talk about multi-dimensional arrays. For this class, I don't think we are going to do that much on multi-dimensional array. We will, and we have used the one-dimensional array. If you do need to implement something, you probably need a 2-dimensional array, but I don't see any reason in this class we'll use more than 2-dimensional arrays anyway. So, but just, it's available, it's doable if you need to do that. Okay? But at least you know how to address to the arrays. Okay? And making sure if it's 2 dimensions, rows and columns, that's how you do it. Okay? But now once you go to 4, 5-dimensional array, then you really cannot see that in your head how that works, because it doesn't relate it to any visual things anymore. It's just data set. So 2, 3-dimensional array, at least you can relate it to geometry and how you align your data. But when you come to 4, 5-dimensional array, then it's very difficult to understand how it works visually. Okay, so you may want to avoid that. So in this class, we'll use 1 or 2-dimensional array at the most. Okay, that's all for the lecture today. And then make sure the recording is still working. Looks like the YouTube recording is still good, and look like my camera and speaker are still good. And Shane just say everything's good. So let's go ahead and stop here for a few minutes, 5 minutes. Okay, and when we come back, we will take a look on the assignment again and the requirement, and I will do a little bit demo for that program to help you in case you don't know how to start. Okay, so let's take a 5 minutes break. Thank you. Okay, I'm back. Let's continue. Making sure speaker, camera working, and they are sharing, and we are still recording, and making sure YouTube recording seems it is still working. Everything looks good today. Oh, got to make sure the recording it is running. So I think we're all good. Excuse me. I'm going to go to full screen mode. Then we'll take a look on the assignment, the next assignment to be due, and see how and what the expectation is on that particular assignment. Okay. I think Shin just joined back too. Okay, let's go ahead and do full screen mode again. Okay, looks like the full screen mode is on. We're all good. And camera, speakers are still working. And YouTube, I want to see, make sure the full screen mode doesn't impact it. Looks like, yeah, I'm moving. That's good. Let's continue on. So, as we said earlier, this is the assignment. Okay, that you have done completed. So you have used loops for the chessboard. So and today we talk more about condition. So we can combine the loops and conditions. And on your second assignment for this week is to create a simple JavaScript page that the user can input movie titles one by one, and then you display the complete list in a second window. So there are two windows for your page, and you need to use JavaScript to capture the information, the strings, and then display on the second window. And you can create a button to trigger the display. I think we did an example of that a couple weeks ago, to do a button, and on click, then you do something using your JavaScript. Extra credit when creating a reset button also. Okay, for example, they can type in 4 movie title one at a time, then you can display them on a second window. Okay, that's the expectation. Okay, so that means you have now. One thing about assignments, I do notice that some of you are not separating JavaScript styles and HTML data into three files. So normally when you submit an assignment, I will expect you to have at least one HTML file for your HTML information, the tables and all those headings, and those data. The data will be, original data will be in the HTML file and the structure. And then you should have a CSS file included by your HTML to define your style, the color, settings, border. Don't put the style inline in the HTML. Okay? Don't do that. Use the CSS, okay, to present your data, to present the style, to select it. And then use the JavaScript to do the dynamic part of it. That's our goal. Because that's how people do that. And that's the purpose to create those CSS and JavaScript. You mix them all up. The problem is it makes it, first of all, harder to read, because when people want to find the style on the table, they're looking for a CSS file. instead of looking for inline in your table, what style, what color you set on the table, right? You don't want to do that. You want to look at your CSS and check up your table style, or you can modify your table style as needed. And you don't want to embed that into the JavaScript or the HTML that way. Okay, so it will be make it a lot easier to maintain and review by others if you do follow the same practice. Okay, so when you work with a team, they will ensure you follow it. So you better practice it now. Okay, so make sure you do. Do not just give me a HTML file with all the styles and then JavaScript create a table instead. Okay, don't do that. So let's take a look on this particular assignment. We will start up Eclipse. Okay, that's Eclipse. Last time we talked about the bingo program. Okay, I hope you play with that too. As I mentioned in the last lecture, I want you to understand how the bingo program works to make it a true bingo card. Okay, so you can learn more from it, but we are not going to revisit it today. Today we are looking at the movie, how to create a movie. Okay, of course I don't want you to. First thing is that's what we expect. When you run your program, you don't have to make it the same look and feel, but at least you have to have two windows. One is to enter the movie title. Okay? Why don't we just type in some real one? Batman Return. Okay? Then you type Superman 1. Type it one at a time. Then you can display the list. I have Batman Returns, Superman 1. Okay. Then you can continue enter. What else? Iron Man 3. Okay. All superheroes. Then you can display. Now there's a fly in front of me. You see, whenever I type in something, I automatically sort them also. You don't have to, but however, I think in the assignment, it kind of mentioned here in a sorted order. Okay, it's kind of mentioned here, but under here it didn't say. So if you don't do it, I'm not gonna take points out. It would be nice you try to do that. Okay, sort the order also. Even the list they gave you was not sorted. Okay, but I did that anyway, just to show you. So if they type in AAA, displayed it. I also implement the reset. So when they say reset, I'll clean up the list and I'll type in another one. Then now it start. Oops, whoa, I make a mistake, didn't I? I have to take a look on it. I thought I did that. I cleared it. Maybe I didn't clear the whole set. Let me take a look on it. Interesting. I think I didn't reset the array properly. So my mistake. But that's what the expectation is. When you do reset, it will clear the list from the display window, and then you can enter a new list. I'm not sure why. I thought I did that. I tried it before. I think this is more the browser issue. I thought I tested at home. It was working. Let's do Chrome. Reset. Yeah. Huh. Interesting. As you have seen, on Firefox, the array was messed up. But on Chrome, it is working. Since I didn't have Firefox at home, so I didn't test it. But in Chrome, it does work. When I reset the list, I can type in a new one, and it displayed it properly. But in Chrome, it didn't. So that is strange. Huh. I don't know why. But as you can see, different browser may behave differently. I do notice that in the text entry window, IE and Chrome work slightly different anyway. Let me change to IE. Allow block content. There's another difference. It cannot clear that. Okay. Let's work. Let me reset it. And now I type test 1. It does work. So it both works on IE and Chrome, but when I do Firefox, it doesn't work. Well, it works mostly. Huh. Oh well. It seems to work now. Must be some glitch in my program then. Even Firefox now seems to work. I am not 100% sure why. Maybe I didn't key it in properly. Oh well. Well, it works, so that's what the expectation is. But still, if you notice the way I enter into the text here, the text view is slightly different in the browser in IE, and slightly different compared to Firefox and Chrome. Okay, so you notice that. Of course, when you do HTML, you know that already. And because of that, sometimes on JavaScript, when you try to interpret those fields, it could be slightly different also. So be careful with it. Make sure you test at least 2 browsers. Okay, Chrome and IE or Firefox. Okay, test on 2. See where you can find any differences. Okay, so basically you can see from my program, I have a text field here to enter the movie whenever it's on change. That means when they click something, the enter when the field change. Okay, then you input your movie into your list. That means you have to keep track of what they enter. Because you enter one at a time, you have to keep track how many they enter. And when you display, then you display the whole list. And the second one, of course, is a scrollable window for a text area. Okay, to display the list. And I create two buttons. One is to display it, the other one is to reset. Okay, so you don't want to mix up all the styles and JavaScript stuff here other than calling the JavaScript program functions to do the job. So I have input movie, display list, and reset list from the JavaScript, and also have, of course, the styles for the color. Simple ones, just light blue, red color, and I'm not using the others anyway. So setting your color by using a CSS file. Okay, so that's how you want to do it. Do not try to mix them up. So that's your minimum requirement. Well, the reset button is not required. If you don't want to implement it, that's fine. But if you want to play with it, you should. And go ahead and try that too. Okay, so that's the expectation, is to create a HTML page, a simple one, with two windows, two text windows, one for enter, the movie title, the other one to display, and you should have at least one display button to trigger the display of the complete list. But they will enter the movie title one at a time. One at a time. That's the requirement. Okay? You don't have to sort them. You don't want to, but you could. It should be simple. I'll show it to you too. Okay? Since it's an array, remember, when we learn array and loops, the reason we use array is because there are methods and functions go with array, and one of them is sort. You can do sorting. Okay, so it's built in, so very easy to use. So I'm going to show it to you too. Okay, so that's the expectation for this assignment. Not difficult. Now please make sure you do it right, because the next assignment, we'll talk a little bit at the end. The next assignment due next week, we'll use similar thing. We'll have same text window, but 3 of them for Celsius, Fahrenheit, and one more. I forgot the what's the third type of degree? I forgot. So you enter 1, it will display all 3 values for different standard. Of course, to do that, you have to do some calculation to calculate the temperature in different units. 3 different types. So we'll talk a little bit more about it. So make sure you know how to enter and trigger. Okay, and trigger a JavaScript function, and then you can alter the value inside the text area to display those information out. So if you can do this one, you should not have trouble doing the next one, except you have to add on the calculation, convert the temperature from one unit to the other. That's all. So once you have this working, it will be very easy to do the next assignment. So please spend some time on it. Okay? So let's go back to the program. As I said before, all we want is a couple simple text area. One for enter, one for display, and a button for display purpose. Okay, nothing else there other than including the CSS and the JavaScript. So let's take a look on the okay. So when you come into the JavaScript obviously those three functions need to be there for this to work, right? Three of them. But before we start, you have to set up some variables. Any name you want it, to keep track of the number of movies that they enter. So I set it to 0, the total number of movies they enter. Okay, and I set up an array. Last time we talked about array. Now we can set it up. We set up our own array of 20 to capture 20, as many as you want, to capture 20 movie titles. And I start with the movie name is blank, so no movie names at the beginning. That's all. So I initialize some variables, and they are outside of those functions because they may, and we will call this function multiple times to enter movies. So you want to keep track of those values outside the function. Okay. So of course, just like we had before, you capture that value and put it inside the array by indexing the number start from 0. Once you do, you increment it, then you blank it afterward. So you can enter one at a time. Okay? It's a simple way to do it, but of course you can have different ways to do it. But it's as simple as this, a couple statements. But you do have to keep track of the total number because you will be calling this multiple times, one at a time, right? So every time I call input movie, when they type something in the input window, okay, then this input movie will be called as many times as they need. So here I have 3. So if I type in one more, then it will add into the list. So my number will go up to 4. When I display, in the display, which I'm not going to show you, it will display that, okay, using a loop. Okay. So of course, in the reset, you have to reset those values. The movie is 0, going back to 0. The name is 0. So basically, just reset everything. Okay. You don't have to clear items from the list because once you reset the index to be 0, there's nothing in there anymore. I think the mistake I probably didn't type in. I put in enter, and then it when I clear, it didn't clear it out. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's what happened. I didn't hit the enter key, so it didn't really enter it. Now I do, then add on. Yep, that's the reason too. Okay, that's fine. That's my mistake. But anyway, so minimum, that's what you're gonna do. Okay, so this is just one way, the different way to do it. So it's up to you how to implement it. Okay. So that's the 2.2 assignment. You want to do sorting, that's nice too. All you have to do, array.sort. That's the method you can use. The array, my array.sort. Then it will sort out the list for you dynamically. So pretty handy. Okay. So that's the good thing about the built-in functions. You don't have to do. Now, last time we have the discussion, I think on 2.2 discussion last weekend, people talk about sorting. Sometimes it's annoying you have to implement sorting, and there are many different ways to do sorting based on the data structure and how fast they can do. The fly in front of me again. But anyway, so with the built-in function, you don't really have to worry about it. You have a list, and it will sort it for you alphabetically. Okay? So that's assignment 2.2 to be due this Friday. Okay? Since we have time left, so let's take a look on the next assignment just to prepare you, since it's related. So prepare you for the next one. You look at the next one is for you to exercise those operators plus, divide, subtract, multiplication. Okay? This assignment requires you to design a web application, convert Fahrenheit to Celsius or Kelvin. Yeah, Kelvin is the one, I forgot the name. So basically enter a program in the text box just like we did, similar to the assignment we have shown, and it will accept it. For example, it's 32, and then it will calculate the Celsius and Kelvin. Okay? When you say convert button, just like display, right? You say convert, then it will convert them the temperature from Fahrenheit to Celsius and Kelvin after you click the convert. And you need 3 text fields, one for each of the unit. Okay? They actually give you a example for calculation. So you don't have to use it, but if you want it, you could. You will check the number whether it's not a number, NaN. If it is a number, that means whatever they enter is correct, then you go ahead and convert it, get the value, and calculate. This is the conversion from Fahrenheit to Celsius. Okay, so that's an example they gave you. Go ahead and examine it and understand it. That's for next week. 3.1. As I said before, this class goes fast, so I want to show you ahead. So 2.2, we just talked about today. You should be able to do that. But please make sure you have CSS, HTML, and the JS file separated. Do not mix them up. Otherwise, I'll take some points out. And also, there are a couple discussions for Friday and for the coming weekend. Okay? Please take a look on it and start the discussion session. And this Thursday, I'll go over the temperature conversion program a little bit more. So get your kickstart on it. Okay? That's the plan for the next 2 weeks. So please read ahead. Read the chapters as needed based on the module. Okay? And this week we'll wrap up most of the presentation. The next one will be on objects and styles. And if you notice, from that on, we do not have any more slides to go over. So we plan on going on the internet to look at some of the features on JavaScript. We may look at some of the tutorial from other websites also for the particular topic we're going to talk about in the following weeks. Okay? So check them out. We'll look at the forms and expressions and event modeling and DOM, of course. Okay? We'll talk about DOM on Thursday. And then we'll go into more detail how to use it in the future, in the next few weeks. That's our plan. Okay. Let me double check. I think, let me see. That's all I plan to cover this week. I mean today. And on Thursday, I will record a lecture session for objects and styles, plus a little bit demonstration on assignment 3.1 concerning about the temperature conversion program. Okay, it is quite simple. All you have to do is using the same text window, but create a couple more, and then do the conversion when they click on the button for conversion. That's it. So it should be quite straightforward. Okay. Let me see. Yep, that's it for today. We'll cut it short. Let me double check. Okay, still working, YouTube, and we are still recording. Okay, everything seems good, and Shin just saying that too. Okay, very good. Okay, I'm not going to do more today. More importantly, for you to catch up with the work, please pay attention to the calendar and making sure you complete all the assignments. Okay, we'll come down to the last 3 weeks. Okay, so there will not be a final exam, but you do have a final report. There's a bigger one. Okay, so look ahead and what needs to be done. Since most of you have some experience on JavaScript already, so take a look on those. So knowing what needs to be covered, okay, do it ahead of time if you could, so you don't have to wait until the last minute. But we'll continue to have few more assignments, not difficult ones. The next one is on day and times. So we learned about the day object last time. You can use the day and time, and then some other small assignments. Okay, and then the final project. So please pay attention. Final project, I think, is 20% of the grade. So if you could look ahead, that would be nice. Okay, that's it. That's all for today. Thanks for joining, and I'm going to close out the. Where am I? I'm going to close out the full screen mode. Okay, we're not in the full screen mode. Okay, we are going to close out early today, about 15 minutes. Okay, have a good day, Shin. And everything seems to be working. I'll stop the recording and we'll end this class today. Thanks for joining.
You are currently the only person in this conference.